Now we have an important story our I-Team has been working on for the past 3 months. It deals with the disturbing possibility that many motorists on the New Jersey Turnpike are being victimized by racial targeting. Investigative reporter Joe Collum is here now with the first of his 4-part series called Without Just Cause. Joe?
Sarah, imagine driving down the highway and being stopped for a minor traffic offense, then being asked to get out of your car so the police officer can search it for drugs. Most people would be shocked, maybe even outraged if it happened to them. But we found that's exactly what's happening to an untold number of people who've done nothing more than drive on the New Jersey Turnpike.
He told me if I didn't open the trunk, that he could arrest me and put the children out on the street and impound the vehicle.
I thought at all times that we was really going to be shot dead.
They're using the turnpike as a dragnet to pick up black and Hispanic people.
His statement was, I could shoot you 2 niggers right here and nobody would know.
And I think Thomas Jefferson said it 200 years ago, if I give up my rights in favor of law and order, I'll end up with neither.
Interstate 95 in northern New Jersey. A state trooper parked near the mouth of the George Washington Bridge takes off in pursuit. A mile down the road, he stops a car containing 3 black men from North Carolina. Their offense, an improper lane change. But that minor infraction has provided the trooper with an opportunity to search their car, and inside he finds 15 grams of cocaine. It's another bullseye for the New Jersey State Police in its war on drugs.
We're in the public safety business, and we're in business to serve the citizen and keep that citizen free from the harmful effects of drugs.
Nationwide, the drug war rages. Here in New York, the casualties are many. February 1988, New York City cop Eddie Byrne shot to death. Last March, federal drug agent Everett Hatcher shot to death. July, a Bronx youth trying to chase away crack smokers stabbed to death. Drugs kill somebody here every day. Crack and cocaine seem to be everywhere.
The amount of cocaine coming into the United States is frightening. Certainly for our government to address the drug situation in the United States, it requires a warlike effort.
But on at least one front in that war on drugs, something may have gone terribly wrong. A Channel 9 I-Team investigation has found that right here on the New Jersey Turnpike I-95 corridor, state troopers are routinely fighting the drug war along racial lines. We found case after case after case in which blacks and other minorities have been stopped, searched, sometimes even bullied and abused for no apparent reason, other than the color of their skin. Another day, another state trooper. Another car carrying 3 black men is stopped on the New Jersey Turnpike for making an improper lane change. For nearly an hour, troopers comb their car from end to end looking for drugs. It's a common sight. This time, though, they come up empty and the men are let go without a traffic ticket. But these men are angry. They believe they were stopped and searched for only one reason.
Skin color, see?
Skin color?
Skin color.
I think he pulled us over because he was black.
I guess he figured that it was something illegal in the car.
I understand they got to do their job, but when it's unnecessary, I'm telling you, straight up for me, it's a bunch of bullshit, man. Straight up.
I was asked, was I, involved with any drugs or was I on drugs?
Nate Jones is a high school principal from Trenton. He was driving his Mercedes-Benz home from Washington, D.C., when he says he was stopped by 2 New Jersey troopers who questioned him about drugs and then wanted him to open his trunk.
I said, well, what did I do? Why am I being stopped? And he said, well, they never told me, Joe. And then, matter of fact, he said, if you continue to ask me, I'll lock you up. I'll arrest you for obstructing justice.
Jones says as he was about to open his trunk, he asked again why he'd been stopped. At that point, he says, things got rough.
He took me, my hands and put them behind me, had me lean over the police car like that. And then his partner came, and they put the cuffs on me, while I'm leaning over the front of the police car.
Jones was arrested for obstructing justice. He'd been stopped for crossing a white line. The obstruction charge was later dropped, but Jones claims he was a victim of racial targeting.
That was my, personal feelings, that I was stopped because I was a minority with driving a certain type of car, that I had to be doing something wrong.
I was scared. I have never in my life been as afraid as I was there.
New Yorker Debbie Bradley and two friends say they were terrorized during a stop and search by Jersey troopers last year.
He was very nasty, like he really hated us. We told him we had nothing in the car illegal. He questioned all three of us, asking us the same question, badgering us. Do you have anything illegal in the car?
He even took the latch off the gun, off the, how can I say, off the holder. And he kind of made it just like he was ready to pull it out. He made me feel that if I said the wrong thing, or even I had to blow my nose, if I had to sneeze, God forbid if I had to sneeze, because I think I would have had a hole in my head.
They'd been stopped for driving in the left-hand lane, a minor traffic offense. But they say the search lasted 4 hours.
And I don't think I will ever go back to New Jersey. That is the way I feel. They say on the television how gorgeous, how nice, how this and that. But the treatment that I got, I will never go back into New Jersey.
People are actually afraid of coming to the second wealthiest state in the nation via a motor vehicle.
Keith Jones is president of the New Jersey NAACP. He says he's convinced state police are stopping and searching people based on a profile targeting black and Hispanic men.
Too many people who are fair-minded have seen individuals being stopped who fit what anyone else, black or white, would call a profile. State police may not call it a profile, but it's clear it's a profile.
We don't condone, nor do we train our people to use a profile. In fact,
State Police Superintendent Clinton Pagano vehemently denies racial targeting. He points to statistics showing 59% of state police drug arrests are of whites and only 40% of blacks.
the bottom line is that those stops were not made on the basis of race alone. That would be foolishness.
But Pagano's statistics don't tell the story of what's happening here on the New Jersey Turnpike I-95 corridor. 191 million vehicles ride this road every year. The turnpike leads here to the George Washington Bridge, a primary route in and out of New York City. Police say a lot of the cars crossing that bridge are transporting drugs, which makes the New Jersey Turnpike a vital link in the East Coast drug pipeline. We examined court and jail records of more than 1,300 arrests made on that highway in 1988. Almost all were drug and weapons related and stemmed from trooper stops and searches. Blacks and other minorities comprised 80% of those arrested.
Off the turnpike, the society, the arrests and the convictions are reflecting the makeup of society as a whole. Now, why should only the turnpike reflect the makeup of minorities?
But the numbers are even higher at the major gateways to New Jersey. For example, in the South, arrests have been so numerous here, troopers call this Cocaine Alley. It's where I-95 bridges the Delaware River and becomes the Jersey Turnpike. Last year on this stretch, blacks and Hispanics accounted for 86% of all drug and weapons arrests by state police.
I was scared for my safety. There were 2 loose cannons in the turnpike.
Manuel Fabian is a Cuban-born lawyer now living in Queens. He'd just driven his BMW over the Delaware Memorial Bridge when he was stopped. He says a trooper began searching his car.
I said, "Officer, why are you searching my car?" He said, "Who's searching your car?" I said, "Well, you have the flashlight, and obviously you're looking for something inside the car." He says, "I'll show you what a search is." And at that point, he took the flashlight, put it against my neck, threw me against the side of the car, and lifted the flashlight so it would be like a chokehold. He then spread my legs, with his knees, and proceeded to pat me down, put his hands in every one of my pockets, and he kept asking me, "Where is the stuff? Where is it? Tell me where it is."
There was no stuff, no drugs, nothing illegal, and Fabian was eventually let go. But he says the experience brought back nightmares of his childhood in Castro's Cuba.
That night brought me back to those experiences as a kid, as a child. It brought me back to having to deal with police officers that were acting without reason.
The situation at New Jersey's Northern Gateway is even more alarming. Last year, 89% of state police drug and weapons arrests here along this 6.4-mile stretch near the George Washington Bridge were of blacks and other minorities.
What it tells me is that what they're doing is they're watching out for black people and minorities. If they catch them in the slightest violation, they stop them. and they hope they pick something up. If they don't pick anything up, the person continues on and nobody hears the statistic.
I wasn't afraid. I was just mad.
Valerie Taylor is not a statistic. She was not arrested. But Taylor says she and her children were stopped and searched on the turnpike late one night last March.
I had told the officer I didn't appreciate, you know, him searching the inside of my vehicle with my children in the car because I felt it was an insult to me. And that's when he asked me to get out.
Taylor says the trooper asked her to open her trunk. She refused.
He told me if I didn't open the trunk, that he could arrest me and put the children out on the street and impound the vehicle.
So what did you do?
I opened the trunk.
Taylor says she was let go with just a warning. Then in May, she says she was stopped and searched on the turnpike again. This time, she did not argue with the trooper.
He had a very evil look on his face. He spoke very hard, and I just did what he told me to do.
Ted Wells is a respected musician, a guitarist, singer, and songwriter in Men at Last, a New Jersey rhythm and blues band. But respect is not what Wells got 2 months ago on the Jersey Turnpike. Wells and another black man were stopped by state troopers for allegedly driving 80 miles an hour, for which they didn't even get a ticket. What they did get was frisked and their car searched for drugs. None were found, but troopers didn't stop there.
They asked us what we did, what we were doing. We told them that we were in a band and that we had a singing group, and they asked us to sing as if to prove that we were telling the truth. So we sung. We used to be so happy in love, we were never far apart. If they told me to dance, I would have danced. I felt threatened, I felt anger, I felt mad, you know, because I felt humiliated.
Wells says he believes troopers stopped him not for speeding, but simply to search.
I don't want to blanket all of them under the same thing, but I think there's several of them that just assume that if you're black and you're young, that you're out there doing something wrong.
That may have been the case last month when a trooper stopped these two Florida men on the turnpike for having a cracked windshield, then searched their vehicle. Kelvin Powell was sent away with a ticket and a taste of Jersey justice.
The point is he had a legitimate reason to pull us over, but not to search.
Many claim searches like this are the result of racial profiling, targeting of black and Hispanic motorists by state troopers bent on catching drug traffickers.
Profiling is illegal. We as state police officers are not allowed to profile.
Brian Caffrey heads a special team which trains New Jersey State Police how to stop and search motorists for drugs. Caffrey maintains searches are conducted only after legal stops for actual traffic violations. Then, careful observation and interrogation of drivers are employed. Eye contact, sweaty palms, nervous laughter, and lies are among the many considerations that go into deciding whether there is reasonable or just cause to search a car. Caffrey says the technique is so accurate that when searches are conducted, they are rarely fruitless.
Most of the time you come up with something, yes. I don't feel that a trooper searches a car without coming up with something, especially if he goes to that extent where he's going to go through the entire vehicle. There has to be something to lead him to believe that it's there, and the majority of the time it is.
But Ted Wells' brother Tony says racial profiling and unwarranted searches by troopers are real. He says he found out firsthand when he bought this vehicle.
For some reason, the Jeep is labeled as a drug dealer's car, a young black drug dealer's car, along with the BMWs. So I find myself constantly being stopped and searched. You know, once it happened like 3 times in the same week.
Pennsylvanian Francis Guy says he refuses to cross the Delaware River into New Jersey anymore.
I've been up to New York, you know, lately, I say maybe 7 to 8 times. Now, 8 times I've been up there. I got pulled over maybe 6 times.
And searched?
Searched.
Each time?
Each time. Fully. You know, from the engine all the way back to the trunk, down to the spare tire.
The police ever find any guns or drugs?
No. If I have to drive, I do, but
if I can avoid driving through Jersey, I'd rather fly around it.
Malcolm Meredith owns a Washington, D.C. courier company. He says troopers have stopped him 4 times on the Jersey Turnpike in the past year and searched him twice.
Were you ever given a ticket?
No, never given a ticket, a citation, nothing.
Warning?
Not even a warning.
So why were you stopped, do you think?
Basically because I was in Jersey.
New Jersey State Police drug arrests skyrocketed 122% last year, thanks to a new stepped-up highway narcotics interception program. Superintendent Clinton Pagano denies minorities are being targeted.
The New Jersey State Police, as a matter of our own record, does not have a majority of black arrests. We have a majority of white arrests.
Statewide, yes, but at strategic points on the Turnpike I-95 corridor, another picture emerges. We photographed 5,300 vehicles driving north and south at different times of day on this stretch of highway in North Jersey. It's the main route in and out of New York City. Less than 7% of the motorists we observed were black. Yet we found that in 1988, blacks comprised 76% of the people arrested here by troopers on drugs and weapons violations. Add people with Hispanic and Asian-sounding surnames, and 89% of the people arrested here were minorities.
This is a great disparity.
Joseph Naus is a doctor of statistics at Rutgers University. We hired him to analyze our findings. Naus says that based on data showing blacks comprise more than 70% of the arrests, but only 7% of the drivers here, troopers are jailing blacks at a rate 30 times higher than non-blacks.
It's such a big difference. It's not like blacks are 40% of the arrestees and 20% of the traffic. That would be a big difference too. Here you're talking about 70% and 7%. That's a very big difference.
There's an overwhelming amount of blacks being stopped in selected areas on the turnpike.
This is a black New Jersey state trooper. He agreed to talk to us if we kept his identity confidential. He says there is no question minorities are being targeted for stops and searches by his fellow troopers.
It's conducted on a daily basis where cars are being stopped and searched without the proper probable cause. Making that arrest is tantamount to anything else.
Even the rights of the people involved?
Well, in some instances, yes. There is obviously a pervasive problem today with illegal searches, and it's going on every day.
Once I told him I was coming from Florida, he radioed on the CB. Next thing I know, we turned around, about 6-7 cars surrounded us.
Tyrone Best is a truck driver from the Bronx. He says last year, troopers stopped him and his brother for speeding on the turnpike, searched them for drugs, and found nothing. How long did they have you there?
They had us on display for about half an hour.
What do you mean on display?
Like everybody was like riding by just watching us, like we caught some more out here, more criminals.
There is no question searches like this have caught a lot of people with drugs. But at what cost to others? How many innocent people have been held up to public ridicule and made to feel like criminals? Our investigation turned up dozens of people who say it happened to them. But nobody seems to know how many others are out there.
Any idea how many people are stopped and searched who had nothing on them?
No idea. No idea.
They are stopping and searching illegally.
Eric Neiser said he thinks warrantless searches are frequent.
We've had many cases where people are stopped. They're told the reason is the windshield or the blinker or the license or the whatever, and then they go through all the questions, they find out, and they search, and they find they're really innocent. They don't even give them a ticket for what they allegedly stopped them for.
They think that they're catching an occasional crook, and they're helping us, and what they're doing is reinforcing maybe the worst and hardest problem that we have to deal with in this society, and that's this pervasive sense of racism.
Get up, Shamar. You can get that. Get up. Good job, good job, good job.
Jerome Banks was leading an exemplary life here in Baltimore. A high school basketball coach, a well-paid computer analyst, a husband and father of 4. Then he made a big mistake. Jerome Banks left Maryland and drove onto the New Jersey Turnpike.
To go through this humiliation, you know, it still hurts.
Banks was driving his late model Saab down the turnpike last summer when New Jersey State Troopers pulled him over for speeding and searched his car. In the trunk, next to a spare tire, was an unloaded .22 caliber rifle.
The trooper grabbed my arm, twisted it in the back, placed the handcuffs on me, and slammed my head on the hood of the trunk. I asked him what was the problem, that it was legal to have a rifle in your car in Maryland, and that it was empty. I didn't have any shells. I never had any shells.
What was legal in Maryland is a crime in New Jersey. Banks was charged with unlawful possession of a weapon. He says it cost him $6,000 in legal fees and lost wages and a lot of pain and humiliation. But Banks says it should never have happened, that he should not have been searched in the first place.
Why do you think they stopped you? Because I'm black, and I was driving a Saab. If I was white, I'd have got a speeding ticket and say, see you, sent me down the road.
Racial targeting by New Jersey State Police is a claim we've heard over and over. Many say they believe they were stopped and searched because of their color or ethnicity. But allegations of racism are not limited to motorists alone. The same claims have been made by some troopers.
The 15 years during which I served in the state police, there was pervasive racism in the New Jersey State Police.
Paul McLemore was the first black New Jersey State Trooper. Now a private attorney, McLemore says he stays in contact with many black troopers who have funneled him material like this document he says was being passed among state troopers in 1986.
It's called the Official Runnin' Nigger Target. And there's one caption that says, "Caution, headshots may ricochet."
McLemore also points to complaints like this filed by a black state policeman 2 years ago, claiming a white trooper walked up to him dressed in a Ku Klux Klan costume while another trooper snapped their picture. The incident happened at a seminar on racial sensitivity.
Racism is so pervasive in the New Jersey State Police, and I'm convinced right to this day, that if white troopers treat their brother troopers like they do just because they're black, what is their attitude towards non-troopers?
Blacks, Hispanics are, in fact, being targeted. I don't think there's any doubt.
This man is also a former black New Jersey State Trooper. He asked us not to identify him, but says he witnessed racial targeting firsthand.
See young black guys, several black guys, girls, out-of-state plates, New York, Florida, California, driving a BMW, Cadillac, Lincoln. They gotta be bad people in their eyes. Where the heck did he get that from? And as a result of that, they're stopped and searched. I think they're legal.
The driver of this BMW says it happened to him. Clifford Cooper, a New York City computer school director, says he was driving his BMW on the turnpike last May when a trooper stopped him, his brother, and their cousin.
He says, "I need to check out your car. Now, either we can do it the easy way and do it now, or we can go downtown."
Cooper says they were not told why they'd been stopped and were never ticketed, but were frisked, interrogated, and ordered to sit in a ditch while the troopers searched their car.
There was no reason for him to pull me in the first place. And then having pulled me, I had all my credentials. I'm the director of a computer school. I'm a legitimate person. So why would you even go through that and put somebody in a ditch? You know, like they're a criminal. Go sit in the ditch while I search this car for whatever the reason is.
I knew we didn't have any drugs, so we submitted to the search.
This Delaware man asked not to be identified, but says troopers went a step further with him on the turnpike last March.
The police pulled us over for no reason, didn't give any reason except said they were looking for drugs. They searched the car, they found no drugs. They made us get out on the side of the Jersey Turnpike and strip search. We had to strip down to our underwear, and this was wintertime.
The organization is not racially biased, that we don't go out just looking for blacks and Hispanics. That is not the case.
With Clinton Pagano at the helm, New Jersey State Police have nabbed more narcotics offenders along its highways than any law enforcement agency in the nation. For drug smugglers, driving the Jersey Turnpike is like running a gauntlet. And Pagano says good police work, not racial targeting, is the reason.
The public right now is saying, do something about this drug scourge. What are you doing? How are you protecting us? We're out there with trained troopers paid to do a job. And I don't apologize one bit for the kind of work they do. From time to time, we have problems, and we address those problems effectively. But we're not going to stop interdicting the movement of criminal activity.
Pagano cites figures showing nearly 60% of his department's drug arrests are of whites. But we examined 1,300 arrests on the Turnpike last year at the north and south entry points to New Jersey, and nearly 9 out of 10 trooper arrests were of blacks or other minorities. But no statistics show the fear, degradation, and even violence experienced by innocent people trapped in the state police dragnet. Errol Cameron is an electrician from Connecticut. He claims he was beaten by troopers after being stopped for speeding on the Turnpike.
As he walked around, actually kicked me in the rib and kicked me in the face. He broke a tooth and knocked one of my teeth right clean out. He also busted my ribs.
Cameron says he was assaulted after questioning the trooper's right to search his car. At one point, he says, one of the officers pulled his gun.
His statement was, I could shoot you 2 niggers right here and nobody would know.
A charge of possessing trace amounts of cocaine was dismissed before trial. But Cameron was angry and sued state police, claiming the charge was phony to begin with, filed only to justify the beating. 2 months ago, state police paid him $42,500 to settle the lawsuit. Last January, right here on this spot on the Turnpike, another trooper pulled his gun. This time, though, somebody died. The trooper calls it self-defense. An eyewitness calls it murder. It happened after 3 black men from North Carolina driving in a Lincoln Continental were stopped for speeding and searched. One of the men had drugs. Gino Henry Barber was an ex-convict on his way to Miami to see his son play in the Super Bowl. Chris Barber is a defensive back with the Cincinnati Bengals. Trooper Robert Hennig told investigators he found marijuana and cocaine on Barber. This was the scene 8 hours later. Hennig said Barber tried to escape by running up this grassy embankment. The trooper said he caught Barber from behind and wrestled him to the ground.
Now the individual grabs a hold of the trooper's weapon. There's a struggle. The weapon is then, the trooper has possession of it. The weapon is then turned toward him. 1 round is fired. Trooper now turns the weapon back around, fires 1 shot at the individual.
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
That's not true.
Bernard Hicks was in the car with Barber that day. Hicks lives in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where Gino Barber is buried. Hicks is still facing drug charges in New Jersey and won't say much about what happened that day. All he will say is the state police story that Barber was killed wrestling for the trooper's gun is false. Trooper statement, you're saying?
It's not true. That's not true.
Did you ever see the trooper on the ground wrestling with Mr. Barber?
I didn't see the troopers scuffling with Mr. Barber at all.
Curtis Ingram was the 3rd man in the car. He's still in Middlesex County Jail awaiting trial. He says Barber was not on the ground fighting, but was running away when he was shot.
Gino turned around, put his hands behind his back like he would let him handcuff him. And when he reached to get his handcuffs, Gino took off, looked at me, took off and run. Run down the hill, trooper run behind him, pulled his pistol out and shot. Doom, doom, like that. Okay, when Gino got down to the bottom of the hill at the ditch to start up the other side of the hill, he fell. His leg went to trembling, you know. So I said, oh, Lord, he done shot him, just like that. So he crawls on up the hill. Trooper went right on behind him up the hill and shot him again. Bam!
An autopsy revealed Barber was shot twice, once in the leg, once through the heart. State police say they found traces of gunpowder on Barber's hands, which they say supports Hennig's claim that he fired in self-defense during a struggle. Ingram, though, says that's not so.
I'm saying that the trooper shot this man. He had already shot him in the leg. He didn't have to shoot him anymore. He didn't have to kill him. That's what I'm saying. He outright killed him. And I don't care what nobody says. He killed him.
Robert Hennig is a former All-American wrestling champion. In just 3 years with the state police, he's become one of the most highly decorated troopers in New Jersey for the large number of drug arrests he's made on the Turnpike. But this year, 4 separate complaints were filed against Hennig by black motorists who said he'd assaulted them during arrests. And then in May, Hennig himself was arrested in the case of this Maryland man. Authorities say Hennig framed Delbert Blair during a stop and search by planting cocaine on him in order to make an arrest. The cocaine was allegedly stolen from an evidence locker. This is Thomas Brown's home turf, the Bronx, where most people travel by L train or by foot. And Brown says he'd rather be walking here any day than have to drive on the New Jersey Turnpike again. Brown says he's been stopped by state troopers there 3 times, never gotten a ticket, but was searched each time. Last March, he says it happened while driving with his cousin.
At the time, I didn't think about it, but after I left, after I got home, I thought about it. You know, I told my cousin, I said, he never said why he pulled us over. He just pulled us over.
Many would call Brown another victim of state police who, in their zeal to stop the flow of drugs, have resorted to racial and ethnic targeting. This week, we've told you that our investigation has found minorities comprise nearly 9 out of 10 drug and weapons arrests at certain key spots on the Turnpike. And the same may be happening elsewhere.
Of the cases that I carry from the Turnpike right now, all of them are minorities.
All of them?
All of them are minorities.
William Buckman says racial targeting is happening in southwest New Jersey's Gloucester County, where he works for the public defender.
White people wearing ties and jackets are not being pulled over. Young people, black people, Latin-looking people. It's a campaign being waged against minorities.
And it may not be only the Turnpike.
It's a disgrace and embarrassment that blacks and Hispanics feel that if they drive down Route 80, they're going to be stopped for no reason at all.
Route 80 is the main east-west highway between Pennsylvania and New York City. In northwest New Jersey, it cuts through Warren County, where Sherry Walliver works for the public defender. She says even though most of her clients are white, when it comes to drug arrests by state troopers on Route 80, 77% of her cases involve blacks or Hispanics.
I think there's been a feeling of credibility that if black people get up and complain about unfair treatment or improper police procedures, nobody's going to believe them. So it's easier to target them.
But state troopers say they're not targeting anybody in New Jersey because of color or ethnic origin.
I don't think you find that people are out there doing nothing and get stopped for a motor vehicle violation are being searched. There was something there that predicated that search, and it was an element of probable cause or probable cause for the trooper to search it.
Sylvester Mingledorf says he doesn't believe that. Mingledorf lives in Chester, Pennsylvania. Last March, he says, driving on the Turnpike to New York with friends, he was stopped and searched by troopers.
Before he let us go, he made a statement that he would be off duty on our way back home, but we would definitely get pulled over again, coming from the Bronx.
Mingledorf says on their way home, that's exactly what happened.
He said, now, if you have any drugs on you, I advise you, wherever you got them, to let me know now, to make it better on you, because if I find them, I'm not going to have no mercy on you. I'll cuff you up, I'll lock you up, and you won't see Chester for a while. And I told him, I said, well, knock yourself out. I don't do drugs, I'm not a criminal or anything. He said, well, step away from the car, and he pursued to search the car.
Americans have always fought against unreasonable searches. 213 years ago, George Washington and his troops crossed the Delaware River right here on this spot to do battle. It was a major turning point in the American Revolution, a war fought in great part because the British were conducting unreasonable searches of Americans. Ironically, Washington crossed that river to fight in New Jersey.
Oh, it precipitated the revolution. I mean, I think today we look back and like to think that it was political freedom that made people want to have a revolution. But in fact, what was driving people really crazy in those days was the fact that they could not keep British officials out of their house, out of their businesses, and out of their lives.
After the Revolution came the Constitution, and the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits unreasonable search and seizures.
Everybody's always telling me to open a restaurant because I can cook so good. So I decided to go for it.
Chris Stubbs says she left her Fourth Amendment rights behind when she got on the Jersey Turnpike last June. Stubbs says she just borrowed $10,000 from relatives in New York to open this restaurant in Lumberton, North Carolina. But the money never made it here. It was seized by Jersey troopers who found it in her glove compartment during a search on the Turnpike.
They come back with the bag and they said, the money is contaminated. The dogs sniffed it out or something.
And what did they do?
They just took it and counted it.
And did they give it back?
And they kept it. They said that it was drug money, so they was keeping it.
On the Jersey Turnpike, cases like that are not uncommon. When trooper searches turn up large amounts of cash, trained dogs are brought in to sniff the loot. If they catch a scent of drugs, troopers seize the money until the owner can prove it's not drug-related. We wanted to know if the New Jersey State Police methods for confiscating drug money were reliable and fair. So we came here to this bank in New Jersey and withdrew $1,000 in cash, all hundreds and $20 bills, and we performed our own test.
They are certified monthly, okay, by the state police in Trenton.
This dog sniffs out drugs for the Essex County Sheriff's Department in Newark. On this day, he detected cocaine on money purposely tainted by investigators.
Good boy, Richard! Good boy!
Then we gave them the $1,000 we'd withdrawn from the bank that very day, and another drug dog was brought in.
There you go. It's your best money, right?
The dog smelled drugs immediately on one of our $20 bills. Then he detected drugs on another bill.
Does that surprise you at all? We got that out of the bank today, this afternoon. Doesn't surprise me at all. Given the prevalence of narcotics in our society today, it's certainly very, very possible that a person can go into a bank with a check and cash a check and get some money that's tainted.
Drug dogs like this have helped state troopers make a lot of legitimate seizures of millions of dollars worth of drugs and dirty money. But Chris Stubbs says she's a cook, not a dope dealer, and she feels violated. She was released without criminal charge and without her $10,000. She'll have to prove in court it was not drug money.
So this hurt you?
Yeah, it's hurt me because I have to borrow money here and there and make every little bit count.
The bottom line is that we are in a society where criminal activity is acute, where the citizen wants that kind of activity corrected.
State Police Superintendent Clinton Pagano says his troopers are doing their job aggressively, but are not violating anybody's rights, despite claims by many motorists.
They do feel as though that they've had their rights violated. And is that something that should be of serious concern? It is of serious concern, but nowhere near the concern that I think we have got to look to in trying to correct some of the problems we find with the criminal element in this state.
It's harassment and it's racism, and it's condoned by the police department.
Jolene Miles is not a member of the New Jersey criminal element. She's a New York City legal secretary. But she, like so many others we've told you about this week, says she was made to feel like a criminal last May when she and two friends were stopped by a trooper on the Jersey Turnpike.
He said, "You don't have any drugs in the car, do you?" I said, "No, we don't have any drugs in the car." It's ridiculous. We don't have any drugs in the car. Well, you know, there are a lot of people that bring drugs in, and we're very concerned about it. And I think there could be drugs in this car.
Miles says the troopers searched the car, found nothing, then released them. But she says she was left with a feeling about the New Jersey State Police that we've heard expressed by many others.
Well, I think what it does in general is make people question what these agencies are really for and who they're really there to serve.
Last month, the Channel 9 I-Team presented an investigation. It was called Without Just Cause. The series uncovered an alleged pattern of racial targeting on the New Jersey Turnpike by state troopers. Well, the I-Team's Joe Collum is here now, and Joe, you have some updated and new information for us.
We do, Jennifer. Our story focused on innocent people being stopped and searched on the Turnpike, primarily for drugs. We found blacks and other minorities are most often the targets, and one of the main indicators we uncovered is the fact that on the Turnpike, minorities are being arrested in the overwhelming majority of cases. Last month, state police said we were wrong, that they arrest mostly whites, but now they're saying we were right.
Earlier on this year, in January, I had decided that I wasn't going to be subjected to this kind of police racism anymore. So I had the sign made because I was just fed up.
25-year-old David Charles decided he'd had enough. Charles says he'd just been stopped by state troopers on the New Jersey Turnpike for the 8th time in 6 years. And although he'd never gotten a ticket, Charles says both he and his car had been searched for drugs during each stop. So Charles, a New York limousine company manager, says he paid $207 to have this sign made.
What the sign says is that I'm tired of being victimized. I'm tired of being emotionally beaten up by the police in this way.
Charles is one of dozens of people interviewed by the I-Team who claim they've been victims of racial targeting. Innocent people stopped and searched by troopers eager to catch drug offenders.
If I'm not doing something wrong, I don't deserve to be hassled. And I certainly don't deserve to be stopped and searched and have my car searched because some police officer feels that black males are druggies or whatever they feel.
Now information developed by the state police themselves raised new questions about racial targeting on the turnpike. Last month in our series Without Just Cause, we reported nearly 9 out of 10 drug and weapons arrests at key locations on the turnpike in 1988 were of minorities. At the north end of the turnpike, we found blacks alone accounted for 76% of the arrests, but only 7% of the motorists. Yet during this July 24th interview, State Police Superintendent Clinton Pagano said our findings were wrong. He said most state police drug arrests were of whites.
Challenge the figures you have and be cautious about the figures you're going to use.
But a new confidential state police study put together in response to our investigation reveals that just as we reported, blacks accounted for 76% of the drug and weapons arrests on the Jersey Turnpike last year.
When you narrow just to the turnpike, you will find, you'll realize it validates in some respects the stats that you portrayed in your series.
But Pagano calls the imbalance a phenomenon, not targeting. He says the turnpike is the main link between Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York, which he calls major minority centers.
Probably that's the demographic phenomenon that results in the otherwise illogical apprehension of black offenders on the turnpike.
But our investigation found only a small percentage of black motorists on the turnpike. Here's how we reported our findings on August 22nd. We photographed 5,300 vehicles driving north and south at different times of day on this stretch of highway in North Jersey. It's the main route in and out of New York City. Less than 7% of the motorists we observed were black. Yet we found that in 1988, blacks comprised 76% of the people arrested here by troopers on drugs and weapons violations. But Pagano disputes our traffic survey that found only 7% of motorists were black. He had no statistics of his own. He simply disputed our method.
You'd have done better had you stayed at a toll booth with a group of counters at the toll booth than you would have trying to stand alongside that highway. Hell, you can't even see whether it's a truck or an automobile half the time.
But some say they don't need statistics to tell them what's happening on the turnpike.
It's something that I never experienced before, and it's something that I will never forget.
Lynn Carr says she and her husband were stopped by troopers on the turnpike last year. They were not given a ticket, but they were searched.
They searched the trunk, the hood, our luggage, and our packages. And then the state trooper had the nerve to ask us if we had receipts for our packages.
In a complaint she filed later, Carr claimed the trooper was intimidating, insulting, and unprofessional.
He was very cruel and mean. He was talking down to my husband. He made my husband feel inhuman.
Carr says she and her husband believed at the time they were an isolated case. Then they saw our report. Now she says they realize they are not alone. But she says that will not erase the memories of what happened that day.
When it was all over, we both had to sit in the car after the state troopers pulled off. We both had to sit there for a while and just get ourselves together because we were actually in shock.
Our investigation has found more than 80 people, almost all minorities, who say they were stopped, searched, and sometimes intimidated, even though they were carrying no drugs, no weapons, and had committed no crimes. Most believe they were targeted because of race or ethnic origin. But state police say they never stop or search motorists without reason.
We deny targeting. We deny orienting our people, or that it's a general practice on the part of members of the state police to stop people on the basis of race or ethnic origin, gender or otherwise, being not part of the allegation, or for that matter, not part of the mix.
After our report aired last month, we contacted the New Jersey Attorney General's office and asked if it planned to investigate the allegations. The answer was no. Then in its September 14th editorial, the New Jersey Law Journal called on the Attorney General to investigate the state police based on our findings. The Journal concluded its editorial by saying it's time for zero tolerance of racism in our government. And Jennifer, right now, the latest word we get from the Attorney General is they are considering the call for the investigation.
A lot of people, no doubt, tonight are saying, but hey, this big drug bust that just happened today started as a result of the arrest on the Turnpike.
That's true. There's no question that the state police are making a lot of arrests on the Turnpike. Last year alone, as we reported in our series, there was a 122% increase in drug arrests on the Turnpike. But what the arrest statistics reflect, what the people who are being stopped reflect, and even present and former state troopers who we've talked to are saying that a great deal of those arrests are resulting from racial and ethnic targeting.
Just real quick, Joe, Pagano seemed to suggest that you couldn't stand there and count the cars on the Turnpike, but you actually did that in your series.
I did it. I know what he was saying, but I know that you can do it. It's not difficult to do. You can sit on the side of the road and tell if it's a black person or a white person driving a car. We did it.
Okay, Joe, thanks very much.